It's so important to collaborate with people because we don't want to waste any effort. The needs exceed our resources. And so by eliminating overlap, we're not only doing a better job of caring for those that we're trying to take care of, but we're also telling donors that we're responsible using their funds.
Welcome to Natural Collisions, brought to you by COAC Detroit. Conversations about the challenges and opportunities in the nonprofit sector, highlighting the voices and nonprofit work in Detroit and Southeast Michigan, and beyond. I'm your host, Charnay Sanders, Program Manager at COAC Detroit. For today's Natural Collisions conversation, we are visiting our neighbors in Macomb County. Macomb County is just north of Detroit, known for its rich natural beauty, including Lake St. Clair and the scenic Macomb Orchard Trail. But beyond the parks and waterfronts, Macomb is also home to a thriving network of nonprofit organizations dedicated to uplifting communities, providing essential services, and supporting those in need. The colliders for this episode are key leaders in Macomb's nonprofit sector. Join us as they discuss the challenges they face, their opportunities for collaboration, and their impact doing great work in Macomb County and beyond. Our guests this month are Fred Huebener.
My name is Fred Huebener. I'm a board member and volunteer at the Macomb Foster Closet located in Mount Clemens, Michigan, serving all of Macomb County and beyond. Our mission is to service children in the foster care system, which today is a lot different than it used to be. So that includes people like myself. I'm an unrelated foster caregiver, so I'm licensed by the state of Michigan to bring teenage boys into my home who have been removed from their primary home. But then foster care, again, looks so much different today than it used to be. So that also includes kinship placement, which is about 47% of foster care nowadays. So that's our grandmas, our grandpas, aunts and uncles, nieces, nephews, cousins, and what we also call fictive kinship, which can be neighbors, teachers, counselors, people who are associated and related to the children, have an established relationship. So foster care today is so much different than it was when I was a child. And so we service the full spectrum of foster care, up to and including them aging out of the system. So up until their age 25. And then additionally, we're also serving everybody within the juvenile justice system, which is at any given time between 40 and 70% people involved with child protective services or the foster care system. So we don't want to forget about them because our goal is to keep them from going down that path. So we're trying to help children who essentially have been removed from their primary biological family's home.
And Joella E. Bush.
I am Joella Bush, the Executive Director of Gianna House. We are a pregnancy and parenting residence located in East Point. We service young women between the ages of 18 and 25 years old who are pregnant and homeless. These young ladies come from the foster care system. They've aged out. Or perhaps they are homeless, living, in their cars, sleeping in someone's basement. They may be in a situation where they're experiencing domestic violence. So there are many different reasons why these young ladies are homeless and couch surfing, living from pillar to post. And so we allow these young ladies to come into our residential facility for the duration of their pregnancy. So at whatever point they hear about Gianna House, and then for up to 1 year after their babies are born. And so during that time, we're assisting them with things such as getting their high school diploma or GED, parenting skills, which is huge. Some may be interested in getting a job. So we assist with many different things to get these young women stable and get them acclimated so that they can be successful members in our community. We also have a community outreach program that services mothers and families of all ages. And so these young ladies, they may be living independently. They may have a husband or boyfriend or partner living in the home, but perhaps they're coming up short every month. And so we do things to help them so that they can help meet their needs before the end of the month. So they may need Pampers, they may need formula. And so Gianna House giving these young ladies these items actually will help them be able to make their rent. It may be a matter of them being $300 short on their DTE bill. And so they don't have to pay the If they don't have to buy Pampers and formula, that's all the more money that they have at the end of the month so that they can continue to live independently. We have a volunteer program. Also, that's the third arm of our program where we allow the community to come in and volunteer and help these young ladies get on their feet. Peer support. Some of the young ladies that have been in our program, we allow them to come back and be peer support and mentors to the young ladies that are currently in the program. So we're doing quite a bit in East Point.
As we dive into this conversation, it's clear that both Joella and Fred are deeply connected to the people they serve. So I'm curious to explore the personal journeys that led them to their current missions. What experiences shaped their passions for this work? Let's hear from both of our guests as they share the stories that brought them to where they are today.
I was a teen mom, and I had my son when I was 17 years old. And although I was not homeless, I was born to a woman who was deaf, and I'm the youngest of 5 children. She and my dad divorced when I was very, very young. So here we have this displaced homemaker who had to learn, how to pay bills. She had to learn how to, go out and find employment. And then she also had to raise 5 children on her own as a single mom. And being the youngest of the 5, again, I wasn't homeless, but I don't believe I had the support, and not by any fault of my mom. She just, either didn't know or she was just overwhelmed with being a single mom trying to raise 5 children. And so I lacked the support that I needed. And so I ended up, getting pregnant and having a baby at 17 years old. And so, the young women that I service every single day, they lack the same types of supports. And so I always say that I see a little bit of myself in each of the young women that I service. And so I understand their plight, I understand their pain, their trauma, and I am constantly in a position where I want to reach out to them and help these women, young women, mind you, be better than they were the day before.
Well, I love Joella's story and that personal connection. I share that with her. In our particular case, in this home, we both have a public safety background. So we've both removed children from people's care. And at the time, we were not trained to understand childhood trauma, family dynamics of what leads families to a situation of neglect or abuse. You're just doing your job in the moment. And I wish I knew then what I know now, having volunteered at the Macomb Foster Closet and become a leader, and also being a foster parent. So we became foster parents thinking that we would be on the other side of this situation that we had previously removed children. So why don't we be on the side of taking children in and helping them either get reunited with their families or to provide them a permanent home, potentially through adoption. So that's how our story started. We had 2 children dropped off at our house February 7th of 2018, and they came with absolutely nothing. And it was freezing cold outside. That was during cold spells, about 10 degrees outside. And they had shoes with holes in them and duct tape, and every piece of clothing they had was torn and ragged. And we called the Macomb Foster Closet because we were referred to them. And we got everything we needed that very night that they arrived so that they could be back in school the very next day. Because if you think about it, the average family would not have the resources to take in multiple children and within a 24-hour period immediately have them equipped with every single thing that they need, from school supplies to clothing, shoes, jackets, hats, coatsmans. The average family would save up their Kohl's cash. They would know when the sales are happening at Meijer's or wherever that they do their shopping. And sometimes you have children as many as 4 and 6 dropped off. In our case, it was only 2, but we have families that have taken 6 or more in one single day and have to have them fully outfitted, by the next day to continue on with life. So the Macomb Foster Closet stepped up and helped us. And plus, they just made us feel connected so that we weren't alone, because we felt very overwhelmed immediately. Children who come out of neglectful and abusive homes oftentimes are have significant behavioral challenges, and it can be very, very overwhelming. And so we felt connected, and we had mentors through the foster closet, and we felt so good about that experience. We ended up volunteering. And then a year later, we ended up getting on the board. And here we are many years later. We have now purchased our own building, and we're very close to having that fully funded and paid off, hopefully by around the summer or end of next year. So we're completely debt-free too, thanks to the generosity of the community. And we service over 2,000 kids a year now. And once we get them in the door to what will be the largest foster closet in the entire country, we've been around since 2012, but now as soon as its construction is done on our new building, renovating it will be the largest one in the country. But once we get them in the door, it isn't just about providing them the essentials that I just talked about to get them back to school, but it's also about the childhood experiences. So it's about Christmas and Easter and Halloween and birthdays, because most of our children have told us that they've never shopped on their own for their own items, picked out their own items, which is a big reason why we operate in a retail environment, so that the kids come in and pick out their own items. So it returns dignity and power to them that they've never had. Instead of having a caseworker hand them a bag full of stuff, so, here's your things, which feels very much like charity, coming into our building returns dignity and power to the child by allowing them to pick out their own items. But we also give them those childhood experiences, because they say they've never had a birthday party. They've never had that morning of Christmas and opening up gifts and things of that nature. So we want to give them all those childhood experiences. And then, since they are physically in our building, we walk through all the other services that are available to them, because most of our families, especially the kinship families, more than anyone, find themselves overwhelmed with the situation, and we kind of help them figure out, they have access to free tutoring for children in foster care. They have access to free summer camps for children in foster care. They have access to community mental health services, and children in foster care go to the front of the line. So if there's, in Macomb County, for instance, usually around 400 kids waiting for those services, but children in foster care go right to the front, which is important, because those kids have experienced the most abuse and neglect, and they deserve those services and need them, quite honestly, in order to turn the corner and move on. So that's how we got connected, through the situation of being in law enforcement, public safety, taking children away, and then utilizing the services of the agency that we now volunteer for, raise money for, and provide services to the community.
It's a great story.
At COAC Detroit, we love to amplify the stories of cross-sector collaborations. Whether it's around topics such as affordable housing, digital inclusion, or foster care, we understand the most complex issues and our region's most pressing concerns require people of diverse perspectives and experiences to work together. As we continue, I wanted to hear about past or current collaborations between Gianna House and Macomb Foster Closet, and how these partnerships have impacted both organizations.
The young ladies that come into our program, some of them are pregnant, and then we have some young ladies, they've already had their babies. And so their babies can be 1 year of age or younger when they come into our program. And so we have referred young ladies over to the foster closet so that they could get items. There have been times when I've received calls from the foster closet saying, we have this abundance of baby clothes, and, do you guys need them? We are constantly giving resources away, not only to our residential young ladies, but also to our community moms. We have over 180 families in our program, and so they are always in need. We always have young moms with young families that are in need, and so when we're able to get items from the foster closet, that helps us with providing resources to the young ladies that are in our program, as well as to the women that are in our community.
I met Joella at a Lions Club of Sterling Heights collaboration event, where we basically did speed dating amongst nonprofits. And I did not know about Gianna House until that day. And it was just wonderful that I had the opportunity to be at her table and get a chance to meet, because it actually opened up our eyes at the Macomb Foster Closet to all of these types of transitional housing programs. So now we collaborate extensively with them and with family and youth interventions in Mount Clemens, because a lot of these transitional housing programs have children who have aged out of the foster care system or have found themselves homeless at some point. I think around, Joella might be able to correct me on this, I think it's around 45 to 50% of children in foster care who are never adopted, don't have that family support structure in place, end up going homeless within about 2 years of aging out. So that creates a very large problem that needs addressing. And we certainly have taken referrals from them. And when we get excess supplies of anything, I've gone down there myself with my son, who is adopted from foster care, and brought supplies down. We've dropped off cereal and we've dropped off formula and all those types of things. And I can't wait in the future to, now that we're getting bigger as an agency, to do even more, possibly applying for grants or things of that nature together. Because we just got our very first service grant ever in our history to service children who find themselves pregnant between the ages of essentially, well, there is no young age, but going up to roughly 25 years of age, who have been impacted by the child welfare system, which, as Joella shared, oftentimes in her clients fall into that category. So we now have our first grant to pay, and we just had our first staffer start, service provider. That's a new step for us. And I would really like in the future to be directly working with agencies on applying for grants together, so that, because there's so much crossover in our clientele that we're serving. And the goal is to help individual young adults, kids, and the families who care for them. And so if we put all of that first and foremost in our thoughts, then we're going to want to work with everybody else who's doing that type of good work in the community.
Congratulations, Fred. I think that's awesome stuff. And definitely, if there's anything that I can do to assist the foster closet with anything that you guys need, definitely, reach out, let me know. We are always open and waiting to assist. You mentioned collaborating on grants. Many of your federal grants, state grants, they want to see and hear more about that collaboration. And I agree that because you guys work with, children, the foster care system, many of the young women that come through our program, they've aged out of the foster care system. And someone said that because you're 18 years old, you are now an adult. And so you should have this thing figured out. And we have learned time and time again that that is so not the case. That's the time when we need to wrap our arms around them even more, right? Longer, harder, and embrace these young people and bring them into our arms and provide them with the continued support and resources that they need. Just because, again, you are chronologically 18 years old, I often use the example, if you begin receiving or experiencing trauma at the age of 12 years old, if you were being raped by your mother's boyfriend at 10 years old, that's where that age stops, psychologically, emotionally, you stop growing. And so there are so many things that these children miss at such an early age, at a young age, because they're just trying to survive. And so, no, at 18 years old, they are not adults. And it's unfortunate because, as the saying, you've heard people say how, you can go to war at 18, but you can't buy a bottle of liquor until you're 21. And so we need to do a better job at supporting these young folks that are 18 years old that is still in so much need of support.
I'm very glad you brought that up. And I think sometimes the community thinks that children turn 18 and they're immediately just abandoned. And that's not necessarily the case. Not only do our programs exist, but I do think the government has some significant programs in place, such as the adult foster care, a voluntary system that the children can enter into. But the problem with that is, and that's where I think we come into play, is a lot of these children, when they hit 18, because they were abused and neglected so severely. I'll use my own son here that is 19 today, and he has the benefit and support of this home that has helped him get to where he's at. And not every child has had that kind of level of consistency. But point being, he came to us at 12. So the first 12 years were 53 different places of homelessness, so living in a car, living in a garage, living on a couch, living in flop motels, living in homeless shelters, bouncing around between family members, even in, living in places without water and things of this nature, all of that we take for granted, that I can flush the toilet and that there's food in the fridge. And Joel, you know all this. What you just said, it stops their progression in life. So he was 12 physically when he came to us, but he was not emotionally 12. He was not mentally 12 years old. And then as we move forward, each year that goes by, so then he's 13, 14, 15, he's not progressing at the same speed as everybody else because we're still trying to get felt safety. We're still trying to feel calm and relaxed because we're still worried that this house is going to be here tomorrow. I've been in 53 different places. This isn't real. This is going to be gone. The rug is going to be pulled out from underneath me. And so we're still in a state of complete chaos and fear that takes years to go away. So even when he was adopted at 15, he was not believing that this was real. And we're a very stable house. We're pretty idealistic here. And even with everything being him getting every ounce of resource and every single thing he could possibly need, his, adoptive grandmothers live right next door. So they were part of our, my old cop partner lived right down the road at the time. And he has a great relationship with him. And he was part of our network. We had a strong network of mentors and family and everybody else. So he had an ideal situation. It still took him roughly 4 years to feel felt safety, to calm down, to relax, to feel like I can trust that this isn't going away, that this is an actual thing in my life that I can believe in. And so all of a sudden, after that 4 years of 26 police calls, 14 CPS investigations, various other things that happen because the trauma causes lashing out, then we can finally move on. So like you said, he turned 18. Was he really 18? Was he ready for life? Not at all. I kind of suspect that maybe 24 or 25 might possibly be 18 for the average kid. So he's doing good though. I'm going to use him he's given me permission to talk about certain elements of his case, the more positive ones, a little bit about the history, certain things I'll leave out because he has a right to his privacy. But he is an example of why we all do what we're doing. I'm sure Joella could share lots of positive cases, and he is one that I'm allowed to talk about in detail. He has graduated the fire academy. He has graduated the EMT academy. He's going on to the paramedic academy, and he's only 19 years old, and he's going to have a full career that he loves and enjoys. And the reason that that's possible is because of places like ours, Gianna House, Macomb Foster Closet, McRest, because he was in the McRest homeless program with his family at one time. And, there was domestic abuse, and Turning Point was involved. So we can go right down the list of agencies in Macomb County that have affected one single person who's here in my own home. Ed Judson Center with their therapy services out of Hoover and 13 Mile. We can continue to go down the list and name one Macomb County, community mental health from the Macomb County Health Department, Macomb Community Action, and the services that they've provided. So the more we work together, the better we can provide those services and get positive outcomes, because either he was going to be, as a former, public safety law enforcement officer, he's either going to be someone that's going to be engaged with what I used to do. So you're going to be getting arrested, you're going to be drinking, you're going to be doing drugs, and it's going to be costing taxpayers lots of money. Or he's maybe, getting someone pregnant, or making other poor choices before he's ready to support a family of his own, and then their children going into foster care, because he's 5th generation foster care. So 5 generations of children being removed into the foster care system. So we're trying to break that cycle. I think, Joella, you might be able to relate to the breaking of the cycle, right? So we're trying to take a child who's costing society a ton of money and having a very chaotic life that brings no joy or happiness to a life of joy and happiness and peace and prosperity for them personally, but also for society too, because we all do better when together we uplift the people who most need support, because then they become productive members of society. And this is what I try to tell people who go, that's not my problem. Actually, every problem in our society is all of our problems. We as a society went into this child's home and plucked him out and stuck him in another home. So we as a society did that. So we as a society have to care for that child. And Joel, I'm sure you have so many stories you could share too of successes, and also where we have a shared responsibility as a community to care for these kids and these young adults.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What a great story and a beautiful example of how, as you mentioned, one person can experience all the services, within Macomb County. It's bitter and sweet, right? It's bitter and sad that, he had to go through all of those things, but sweet in that he finally found a family that could provide him with the love and the support, the consistency that he needs to be successful. You had mentioned about, how, when you get someone into your family, how they have to get to a space where they can trust. With our organization, the young ladies that come into our program, they come in for the first 9 months of their pregnancy and then up to 1 year after their babies are born. And sometimes you get young ladies who stay the course. They work the program, and then you have some that struggle along the way. And so they may not complete the whole program. I had one young lady that came into our program who had lived such a chaotic life. Her parents hadn't looked for her in over a year. And, she lived an alternative lifestyle. She ended up, getting pregnant and ended up out on the streets. She was being fed drugs every single day by her abuser and her abuser's mother. And her parents never looked for her. Her parents, never took the time, they didn't love her enough, or at least that's how she felt. And so when she came to Gianna House, it was too peaceful. It was too quiet. And I'll never forget that young lady when she came into the program. Her eyes were big as saucers. And she looked more frightened being at Gianna House because it was outside of her norm. It was outside of what she was accustomed to experiencing every single day. She was accustomed to the chaos. And she began to create chaos within the home. And so oftentimes, these young people, when they, come into these different programs, they sabotage and they create situations that will cause them to be terminated from the program. And so as a professional and as someone who have a love for the population, you have to be able to recognize that, right? And embrace them even more and love on them even more and just help them understand, no, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. We are here to help you. We are here to service you. We are here to love you. We are here to empower you. And so, this young lady stayed with us for a little while. However, the acting out began to, be out of sync once again. And the one good thing that came from that is we were able to contact her mom, and we understood that most of that acting out was because at the end of the day, this young girl needed her mama. She needed her mama, not her mother. She needed her mama. She needed that love and that support. Yes, we could love her, and we did. We could provide her with resources and support and, help her get on the right track. But at the end of the day, she wanted her mama. And so we were able to connect that young lady back with her mother. And so this is the success. She acted out so badly, towards the end, but we were able to connect her back with mother, get them into counseling, right? And so that's the success. That's the success. We held on to her. We didn't push her out. We continue. When she dug her heels in, we dug our heels in too and said, we aren't going anywhere. And, I checked in with her godmother actually maybe about a couple of months ago. And she has had her baby and she's still doing well. And she's still at home with family. And as I mentioned, this is a situation where this young lady's parents hadn't looked for her in over a year. And so, that's a great story of success. And so some of the young ladies that come into our program, as I mentioned, they stay for a short time. Some stay for the duration of the program. Fred, you've had the opportunity to work with the gentleman that you have, your son that you have in your home for a number of years. And the way Gianna House is set up, we don't have that opportunity. You know, you look at years of abuse, and there's no way we could unpack and provide these young people with what they need in such a short period of time. You know, so you figure 1 year and 9 months trying to unpack and undo a lot of the trauma that these young people have experienced all their lives. We're unable to do it. But what I say is that each case that come into Gianna House, each young woman, each baby that enters into our program, they are a success, because if all we were able to do was just plant a seed of hope, plant a seed of life, plant a seed of it's okay to be in pain, but this is what you need to do to, you know, to help yourself, to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, then we have done our job just by planting the seed. And what ultimately happens is, and I say this all the time, if Gianna House, if we can plant the seed, then we will direct that person or refer that person to the next organization that will water the seed. Another organization will shine a little sunlight on that person. And so that's the community of it all. That's the community that we perpetuate here in Macomb County.
And I think you're hitting on the collaboration elements right there. You know, they come out of your program, if they've maxed out the year, and even maybe while they're in the program, we could be collaborating by providing any of the necessities that they might need. But especially after they age out of your program, we would continue to help them get set up in their first apartment, you know, with items that they may need. Anything that we don't have, we have other collaborators that we call on if we're short on a particular item. Because as you know, things fluctuate a little bit on your inventory based on your resource in the moment. And that collaboration that we can call Big Family of Michigan, or that we can call one of our other foster closets in Oakland County or downriver and obtain items. So for instance, if you referred somebody to us and they needed a double stroller, I didn't have one, I'm going to call one of my other foster closets. We're going to get that double stroller and we're going to get them taken care of. So there is this opportunity to give them years and years and years of services, collaborating by pulling all those different agencies together. Like, and maybe they're getting therapy services, ongoing therapy services, or ongoing rent and utility assistance through other agencies. You know, we have one right down the street at the Episcopal Church that provides that the money you need to get into an apartment, you know, for the first month, security deposit last month. So you just pull these little pieces of these together. Now, the average person who's been exposed to the things we've talked about, they sometimes can't figure all that out on their own. But through your agency, through ours, we help connect them and make it simpler and understandable for them to get the services from 4, 5, 6 different places, which can be overwhelming to them. But we're helping them through that client management and then collaborating with each other to pull those 4 or 5 services together. And it's just one of the things that warms my heart is people like yourself, Joella, who do this work. I love working with you. I love working with McRest down the street, with April. I love working with Turning Point. I love working with family and youth interventions and all the various. We have the Salvation Army Citadel, which does a soup kitchen twice a day, 500 feet away from us. You know, and we ever get food that we cannot utilize immediately, it goes straight to the soup kitchen. So it goes right into the mouths of homeless folks that are in need. I love doing this work. I rarely come across people who work in our industry, does happen, but very rarely, who aren't so sincere about and passionate about the work that they do for these youth, for these people who care for them, and these young adults.
Let's go a little deeper into the collaborative work of nonprofits based in Macomb County. I asked my guests to share any collaborative models they've witnessed or participated in within the nonprofit sector in Macomb. I asked them to share the stories, the successes, the challenges, and the lessons learned. While collaboration isn't always easy and partnerships come with their own hurdles, we believe the transformational impact is well worth it.
So one of the agencies that we collaborate with on a regular basis outside of the Macomb Foster Closet is an organization called A Girl Like Me. And this is an organization, small organization, who services young women that are aging out of the foster care system, that are in the foster care system, and that require mentoring and learning about being a young woman, right? These young ladies sometimes have children, have babies, and, they just require that additional support. They aren't a residential program, but they're more of a mentoring. And so oftentimes if we have formula or Pampers, we will reach out to a girl like me and let them know, hey, we have additional resources for you. Or perhaps, we need size 5 Pampers, right? But all we have are the newborns, for example. We will, collaborate with that particular organization and swap Pampers, swap formula, swap baby clothes and things of that nature. So that is one organization that we're looking to build more of a collaborative partnership with that particular organization. We have an ongoing relationship with Macomb Salvation Army. Our facility, we can accommodate 4 young women and 4 babies. Currently, we actually have 5. We have a young lady that's staying in one of our on-site apartments. So, we're constantly getting people in. We are constantly getting calls, constantly getting emails. Social media is big, right? So I'll get inboxes from young women who are in domestic violence situations. They're living out on the streets. We've had young women that have come through the program or needed assistance who were human trafficked victims. And so sometimes we are unable to accommodate them all. And so I will warmly refer these young women to, as Fred mentioned, Macomb, Turning Point, Salvation Army, Amelia Agnes. We have a great partnership with Mary's Mantle, which is actually in Oakland County, but Abigail Ministries is in Macomb County. That's a sister organization. And, we will refer people over to those organizations when we can accommodate them. And unfortunately, there aren't enough resources. There aren't enough residential programs in place that, unfortunately, the need is so big, that it's so huge that we need more residential organizations. And so, we find ourselves referring people out all the time.
To kind of go along with that question of collaboration in our area, I'll use a story of someone who's been public in our hometown. So we're located in Mount Clemens. Everybody has to have a home base at job, right? Especially if you have a retail location. So I'll use Mount Clemens as the example here. Spencer Calhoun is a city commissioner in Mount Clemens, youngest city commissioner that they've ever had. But he's been in Lansing, and he has shared his story about being homeless, being kicked out of his home, and living in a kind of a porta-john on a construction site. So he would be there during the night sleeping and have to leave during the day when the construction workers were there, until a teacher put him in contact with Family and Youth Interventions, which is also in Mount Clemens, and similar to Gianna House, helps people in a transitional living environment get the services that they need. But they're not focused on individuals who are pregnant. So that's why Gianna House is so important, because people who are pregnant come into the system, we're able to connect them to them. But this is a gentleman, and he went through Family Youth Interventions. And then when he was successfully out of that program, I happened to just meet him in my advocacy work for children in foster care, and met him through his work in Lansing, advocating for children who had gone through homelessness. And he put us on to Family and Youth Interventions. And so you flash forward, he's a great example of someone who's successfully come out of the system. But now we have this ongoing partnership with Family and Youth Interventions also, which is right in our backyard. So when we had a homeless youth in our parking lot knocking on our door while we were doing construction on the building, and he said he was hungry, and said that, he needed to go up to court too, and he was afraid to have his car towed because he's living in his car and he didn't have money to put into the meter. Could he park his car in our lot while he walked right up the street to the Macomb County Court and dealt with his criminal justice situation? We said absolutely, and said, I want you to come back and see me when you get out of court. So we gave him some food to get him through that exact moment. He goes up to court, he comes back, we connect him then to Family and Youth Interventions. and call them up and get the referral going there. We also then, give him everything he needs to survive in his car right now, because Joella mentioned earlier too, sometimes you have to meet people where they're at. Sometimes they're not successfully going to be able to do every single thing that you're offering in the moment through whatever programs you have. And that's where these collaborations come in so important too, because by meeting people where they're at, maybe they're not ready to take on the full services of family and youth interventions, and they're going to remain homeless. So some people choose to be homeless in the moment because of alcohol addictions, drug addictions, mental health issues. They don't want to take their pills. Also, sometimes there's just a lot of fear of the system or whatever it is. So we do a lot of meeting people where it's at. And that is where collaborations come in handy. Because if I can't meet you where you're at right now, I know somebody who might be able to meet you where you're at right now. Or maybe it takes 3 or 4 of us. So that gentleman is a perfect example of meeting somebody where they're at and using our friends and neighbors who are in this work with us. And then you wanted me to talk a little bit about kind of our collaborative effort that we put together 2 years ago with the Foster Closet Coalition. So the Macomb Foster Closet leads the Metro Detroit Foster Closet Coalition, which is made up of Downriver Foster Closet, which is in Wyandotte, Oakland County Foster Closet, which is in Farmington Hills, Big Family of Michigan, which is in St. Clair Shores, at the Para Nonprofit Center, and ourselves, Macomb Foster Closet in Mount Clemens. And we are trying to continuously expand that and bring other people into the fold, but we had to start somewhere, and that's everybody who was interested in getting together. And we are already headed to applying for grants collectively as a coalition to serve children that are wards of the court and care. And we've also not had to reinvent the wheel on everything. So we've been able to visit each other's locations. We've been able to see each other's operations manuals, our policies, our procedures. So as all of the closets, which are still in a growing phase, because closets only came into existence in 2012 in the state of Michigan. And so we're relatively new, and every closet in the state of Michigan, except for 2, is 100% volunteer-based. And even the 2 that have staff, it's only a very, very insignificant part-time staff member. So we're all in this growing phase. Just going back 5 years ago, we were serving 400 to 600 kids, and now we're serving over 2,000. So this coalition is helping us not reinvent the wheel by, here's your volunteer manual, here's your policies and procedures, here's your bylaws, here's how you're working with clients from DHHS, here's connections to certain various foster care private agencies that we have to work with through caseworkers and social workers. And it's led to us having an amazing relationship with DHHS, all of the foster closets collectively. We've had sit downs with the director of child welfare for the entire state of Michigan and the regional director. Things that never occurred before are now happening because of this foster care coalition. And we've been invited also to apply for money, which is a new thing, to be invited to apply for money, primarily because people like the idea of us working together to be more efficient and effective. There's another benefit that comes out of these coalitions and working together. So I'll use an example of another agency right in Macomb County, the Friends of Foster Kids. So, everybody starts somewhere. Pretty much all of us private little foster agencies that service with direct services to kids started in garages in people's homes. And now you flash forward and we all have our own buildings and things of that nature, and we're growing. It's easy then to have overlap of services. And so it's so important to collaborate with people because we don't want to waste any effort. The needs exceed our resources. And so by eliminating overlap, we're not only doing a better job of caring for those that we're trying to take care of, but we're also telling donors that we're responsibly using their funds. And so, Friends of Foster Kids does Christmas gifts, but they do them in a particular way, and they do a particular group of children that's DHHS managed kids. And so we don't do that. We take care of other kids to make sure they get their gifts. So by collaborating, you're also eliminating redundancies, you're eliminating overlap, and you're focusing your resources where they're most needed and being the most effective and efficient that you can be.
As we wrap up the incredible stories and lessons shared about the impactful work happening within these amazing organizations in Macomb County, I asked them to share their final thoughts. Specifically, I wanted to hear more about their missions and the ongoing collaborations that are making a difference in the Macomb County nonprofit community.
Sure.
So first of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me to talk about the mission of Gianna House and all the great work that we're doing here in East Point. Fred, thank you as well. This has been a great conversation, and definitely looking forward to collaborating more with you and your organization, and looking for ways in which we can build the work that we're doing and make these people that we are servicing more committed members to our community. I love the idea of partnering with you with the Macomb Foster Closet for grants. As I mentioned earlier, there is always a grant that says, who are you collaborating with? We want to make sure no silos are allowed when you are looking for grant monies. And so it just really shows how you're working with other organizations to build upon the work that each organization is doing to provide the services that are needed. I can appreciate the fact that we are servicing some of the same clients, the same people that are experiencing so much trauma day in and day out. And I would definitely love to work more with you. So let's continue these conversations and talking more, and let's see how we can make that happen.
Well, Macomb County and the world's a better place because of you, Joella. It just touches my heart every time I think of kids who have been through things that are very difficult that I never had to experience in my life, feeling alone, finding themselves homeless, or not having a consistent place to live, couch surfing, whatever it might be, that they have a place that they can then get through that first critical year as well as the pregnancy itself to help them get it on a path. So thank you for what you do. And I absolutely look forward to taking our first meeting at the Lions Club and what's come from that, which has been a kind of an exchange of excess resources and exchanges of clientele and supporting the young adults to the next level. And I'm so looking forward to that. And I want to do that with, family and youth interventions. I want to do that with McRest. I want to do that with Turning Point. I want Macomb County to grow its social services because we're behind other counties, quite honestly. When that report that came out of Advancing Macomb indicated clear as day that Macomb is behind Wayne and Oakland County in providing social services. And so such an important area. As we get more and more known, especially with this new building, we're finding ourselves overwhelmed with more and more clients trying to get our services. The necessity of us to work with other people to bring more services to the table to service that population is critical. And this is close to our heart because we have children in foster care in our home. And I find nothing greater in life than supporting other foster families to give every kid the opportunity to have a safe and a secure place to grow up and get everything that they need to be happy.
It's so meaningful, just like hearing everything you both share. Like, it was just tugging at the heartstrings, and I can really sense the passion between why you both do the work that you do, and so amazed at all of the work that you both are doing. So I'm just so grateful to learn more about the work. It's just been inspiring.
Thank you to both of our guests, Joella E. Bush, Executive Director at Gianna House. Learn more at giannahouse.org. And Fred Huebener, volunteer and board member at Macomb Foster Closet. Find out more at macombfostercloset.org. If you are looking for more resources and information about the nonprofit community in Macomb, visit advancingmacomb.com. This has been the Natural Collisions podcast from COACT Detroit. Remember, the word COACT itself means to work together because we know we cannot have transformational impact if we only work alone. To learn more about our work, visit coactdetroit.org. Please subscribe to Natural Collisions on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. We will be back with more conversations soon. Thank you for listening.